Hare Hare, good morning. So this is being recorded and for a later upload to our group. So what we'll do today is we'll have 5 minutes of Japa. Recite with me. It is a Hare Krishna mantra. The mantra that combines all energy from the divine masculine in Krishna all the way to the divine feminine in Radha and everything in between. Powerful mantra for helping us to manifest Bhakti. So we'll chant that mantra with me, Japa, for 5 minutes. Then, if there are any questions regarding the essay on the choice to love in relation to marriage and Bhakti Yoga, then we can discuss those questions. If not, then so be it. The Japa session alone will be quite powerful if we put ourselves into it. So you can chant with me, and remember to chant out loud so the sound vibration itself reverberates throughout our entire body and being. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna,
Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare
Rama,
Rama, Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna,
Krishna,
Hare
Hare Hare,
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama,
Hare Hare.
Hare Hare.
Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna, Hare
Krishna
Krishna,
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 Hare
Hare Hare,
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna, Krishna
Hare
Krishna,
Hare,
Hare Hare,
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama, Hare Rama,
Rama
Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna, Krishna
Krishna
Krishna,
Hare
Hare Hare.
Hare Rama,
Hare Rama, Hare Rama,
Rama
Rama
Hare
Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna,
Krishna
Krishna Krishna,
Hare
Hare Hare.
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama, Hare Rama,
Rama Hare
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 Hare.
Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna,
Krishna
Krishna,
Hare Hare
Hare Hare.
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama, Hare Rama,
Rama
Rama Rama,
Hare Hare
Hare Hare.
Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna,
Krishna
Krishna,
Hare
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 Hare.
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama, Hare Rama, Rama
Rama
Rama,
Hare Hare
Hare Hare.
Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna, Krishna
Hare
Krishna,
Hare
Hare Hare.
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama, Hare
Rama
Rama,
Rama
Rama
Hare
Rama,
Hare
Hare Hare.
Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna,
Krishna
Krishna
Hare Hare
Hare Hare.
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna,
Krishna Krishna,
Hare
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 Hare.
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama, Hare Rama,
Rama
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 Rama,
Hare Hare
Hare Hare.
Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna,
Krishna
Krishna
Hare
Hare Hare.
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama, Hare Rama,
Rama
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 Rama,
Hare
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 Hare.
Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna,
Krishna Hare
Krishna
Hare
Hare Hare.
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama, Hare
Rama
Rama,
Rama
Rama
Hare Hare
Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna,
Krishna Hare
Krishna
Hare
Hare Hare.
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama, Hare Rama,
Rama
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 Rama,
Hare Hare Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna,
Krishna Hare
Krishna
Hare
Hare Hare.
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama, Hare Rama, Rama
Rama
Rama,
Hare Hare
Hare Hare.
Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna,
Krishna Hare
Krishna
Hare
Hare Hare.
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama, Hare Rama,
Rama
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 Rama,
Hare Hare
Hare Hare.
Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna,
Krishna
Krishna
Hare
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 Hare.
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama, Hare Rama,
Rama
Rama
Hare
Rama,
Hare
Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna,
Krishna Hare
Krishna
Hare
Hare Hare.
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama, Hare Rama,
Rama
Rama
Hare
Rama,
Hare
Hare Hare.
Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna,
Krishna
Krishna
Hare
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 Hare.
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama, Hare Rama, Rama
Rama
Rama,
Hare Hare
Hare Hare.
Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna,
Krishna
Krishna
Hare
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 Hare.
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
So, two things I want to touch on. And when I post this recording, I will also link the essay I wrote in order for you to have some context on these 2 points I want to clarify and expand on a little bit. The first point is the article was about, or the essay was about the choice of love and how making the choice of love is an extremely difficult thing to do. One thing I want to expand upon, which I was unable to do so in the essay, was defining love. And rather than go into a long dissertation in terms of defining love, particularly because we're so used to the Hollywood or the Bollywood definition of love, or a sentimentality that is not reflective of love, but is reflective of our traumas, proclivities, and so on, and attachments, etc. I want to define bhakti in these terms, or love. I want to define love in relation to bhakti. And going forward, I will interchange. When I say love, I'm actually speaking of bhakti. We know, as we've always talked about, bhakti is part of who we are. It is an inherent part of the jiva, the spiritual being. And it's described in this term, Ananda Maya Pyasad. We are the very energy of this Ananda, which is the essence of bhakti. So what is bhakti, or what is love? And to very briefly define it in order that we have a starting point is to look at what it is not, or to look at what obstacles are in the way of bhakti. And those obstacles are sixfold, called the Arishad Vargas, and we've talked about this. Kam, Krodh, Lobha, Moha, Mada, and Matsarya. Lust, anger, greed, delusion, arrogance, and envy. Not going to go into a very detailed description of each of those, but they're easy to understand. Lust, not just in terms of carnal lust, but really the sense of craving and intense desire. That's the kama that's being referred to in this description. Lust, anger, greed, delusion, arrogance, and envy. These 6 things are obstacles to love when we are controlled by them. When we are controlled by these 6 Arishad Vargas, we are unable to choose love. So there must be not necessarily eradication, but there must be mastery, is what the Upanishads talk about. There must be mastery of these things so that they do not control us, and therefore we have the freedom to choose, because love, bhakti, is always about a choice. Without choice, there is no bhakti, there is no love. If we are controlled by these 6 Arishad Vargas, we do not have the freedom to choose bhakti. So bhakti begins with the mastery of the Arishad Vargas. So there has to be a development, a personal spiritual development, so that we have mastery of these 6 things. That's the first point I want to bring up in relation to that essay. The second thing I want to bring up in relation to that essay, and then we'll go to any questions if there are any about that, is I reread the article last night, the essay last night, and there are some parts I could have worded differently. Not that would change the conclusion, but one particular part that has to be, really, I would go back and actually change or emphasize one particular part, and that is the article or the essay gave the sense that I was saying, right, those three things, comfort, convenience, and security, we would rather choose those three things over love or over bhakti. We prefer comfort, we prefer convenience, and security. The essay gave a sense that I was saying we cannot have, it's an either or dynamic. It sounded like the article, the essay came across as if it were a dichotomy. Either we have love or we must have discomfort, inconvenience, and unpredictability. And that's not what I was going for. What I would add and emphasize to that essay was the issue of attachment. If we are attached to comfort, then we lose the ability to choose love. If we are attached to convenience, then we do not have the freedom to choose love. If we are attached to predictability and security, we don't have the freedom to choose love, because oftentimes love will require us to make a choice that is unpredictable, a choice that is inconvenient, a choice that is uncomfortable. So it's about attachment to those things and not those things in and of themselves. That I did not make perfectly and abundantly clear in the essay. We can have preferences. In fact, bhakti is all about preferences. Bhakti is all about the recognition that variety in having our preferences, that is what bhakti requires in terms of freedom. For a different individual to choose something different than we would choose. That's where bhakti begins. If there were no variety, and if no one had a preference, that is actually, there's a term for that. That's Brahmananda. That's Advaita Vedanta. There's no variety. There's no preference. There is existence, and there is joy in that existence, because that existence also doesn't bring unpredictability. That existence doesn't bring discomfort. That existence doesn't bring inconvenience. So it is a joyful experience. In fact, that experience is called Brahmananda, the joy of having existence devoid of inconvenience, completely devoid of unpredictability, and completely devoid of measures of discomfort. Now, we're not talking, when I say discomfort, I'm not talking about misery. Right? I'm not talking about abject suffering. What I'm talking about when I mean discomfort is, I mean, sometimes we have to make choices that rub up against our preferences, rub up against our belief system, rub up against our indoctrination, right? Our social obligations. That's what I mean by discomfort, more so than just physically having our arms and legs chopped off. That's, of course, is a completely different, an extreme description of discomfort. So it's about attachment to those three things that are an obstacle to love. That's what kama, when we talk about kam, krodh, lobha, moha, these six, lust, anger, greed, kama is referring to that intense craving or attachment to something. When we have that attachment, we have difficulty in choosing. That is an obstacle to love. So those are the two things I wanted to amplify that were not amplified in that essay that I posted in our group yesterday. So I'll go back and once again, when I post this recording, I'll repost the link to that essay as well, so everyone has some context. So that's all I wanted to share today. I wanted to spend a little more time if there were any questions or explorations on the topic of that essay. If not, we can go about our day this morning. This is a bit of an abbreviated satsang, depending on where or how many questions or explorations we have. Any thoughts?
I have a question.
Please, by all means.
This is something that this question has been in my mind for a very long time, many years. Love, is it possible to teach love? Because in my opinion and experience, love is beyond mind, beyond the mind, beyond the thinking, beyond logic. And teaching usually occurs in those realms, like with logic and words and um, mind working, trying to pull things together. And love is beyond that. So how do you even teach love?
You can't not teach love, but you can learn it. I like to compare, if you will, love to music. You can teach a person. I learned a musical instrument, so this example speaks to me. It's limited, of course. You can teach. So comparing love to music. When you teach, you can teach a person an instrument, and the particular instrument I was learning was a mridangam. And my teacher taught me what not to do, how not to strike the head of the drum. Otherwise, I will cause blisters, cause injury to my hands. I get the wrong sound. And he would show me how to get the right sound. He would hit the head of the drum, and a particular sound would come out. And he would say, try to get that sound. Now, that's all he could do. He can only teach me what not to do and what the sound sounds, what the correct sound sounds like, or what the sound, at least to his own ears anyways, but to get me to replicate a particular sound. So it's more about teaching. You can teach what not to do. What then I had to go forward and do is I had to sit down with the drum and strike it 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 and learn by a lot of trial and error, a lot of blisters and bruised fingers on how to strike the drum to get the correct sound. That is the comparison I like to use about love. You can also learn love. So what a person can do and what our gurus do is they teach us about the obstacles to love, which is we talk about. And this is why there is a view that, a spiritual view, that we do not need a living guru in our life. That just by having a guru, even if the guru has passed away or is no longer on the planet, we do not, I can receive, and then a common example is given is of Ekalavya and Dronacharya. Ekalavya this individual learned archery by worshiping the murti, the statue of Dronacharya, and he became Dronacharya's most skilled disciple in archery. So oftentimes that example is used to say, well, you do not need the physical teachings, the physical presence of a guru in order to learn something. I'm coming back, so just give me a second here. That is the exception that proves the rule, because the guru cannot teach love per se, or bhakti. Go back to using the term bhakti. But the guru can let you know when you are choosing something other than. Number one. The second thing is that guru can model, just like my Mridanga guru modeled how to strike the head of the drum. Just because he modeled it doesn't mean I could do it. But at least I had a clear representation of what it is I was trying to achieve. So this idea, this sometimes spiritual concept that you do not need a living guru is it's certainly spiritual, what's the word? Spiritual prasad, spiritual mercy, the grace does not need physical presence. Absolutely. Absolutely. The issue is that our conditioning is so dense that if we have the spiritual input and feedback of a living guru who can show us how to strike the head of the drum, they're more likely to therefore achieve it. But no, it is not absolutely essential to have a living guru. I was going down that line to say this. The guru can model. The guru can also teach or show or indicate to us what is an obstacle, where we are choosing something other than love. But we have to strike the head of the drum, continually strike. We have to, and that is sadhana bhakti, which is why the first thing we did today was chant japa for 5 minutes. If we sit here and pontificate and debate back and forth, what is love, what is not, without sadhana bhakti, without the practice of bhakti, without the striking of the head of the drum through japa, by bringing the resonance of Radha Krishna, of bhakti within our being, then it's merely pontificating and trying to describe something, and we have no point of reference. We're not practicing. We're not ourselves striking the head of the drum. Any other thoughts? Very well. So I'll end the recording here, and I'll post the recording in our group, and I will, the essay is already in the group, but I'll try to also post this to YouTube, and I'll post the link to the essay in the YouTube comment section so people can read it there.
Can I add one more thing?
By all means.
You said something very interesting. You said your teacher, Mridanga teacher, would show you how to do it. And that reminded me, in my experience, when someone shows me true love, that always, always invokes love in me. Maybe that is a good way of quote unquote teaching.
Yes, absolutely, because that's actually the term is acharya. And acharya is someone who, achar means behavior. Acharya means someone who teaches by their behavior. Their very life is one of love. Mm-hmm. So a person who is resonating, and this is why also japa is very important. And I talked about chanting japa out loud. So just we begin to resonate with the energy of bhakti, so that when we see an acharya, a bhakti acharya, a person, an acharya who's exemplifying bhakti, we immediately, our resonance can, harmonize. So that we're able to then pick up and recognize and see an example of bhakti. It harmonizes with ourselves, and it empowers us to go live in our life through bhakti. But if we ourselves are tamasic, and we're not resonating, or we're not able to begin that harmonizing resonance with other bhakti acharyas around us, then even if, and this is where it becomes just the opposite, right? A person, what did they do to Christ? Christ is resonating bhakti, but because the people around him are so dense, they're resonating on a completely different frequency. What did they do? They crucified him, because the resonance of bhakti was something that was so foreign. It was so uncomfortable. It was so unpredictable. It was so inconvenient. They had to kill it. So just because an acharya is resonating bhakti doesn't mean that people around him or her can reciprocate with that and uplift everybody. Sometimes persons resonating with bhakti are the most persecuted. It's unfortunate. But this is why the sadhana of bhakti is essential, so that we all can begin to resonate with bhakti, even if we don't practice it. At least on certain levels, we can begin to, when we're in the presence of bhakti, we do not attack it, which is a very, very common response to a friend of mine asked me about a mutual friend. And, well, actually, it was my daughter. She asked me, she said, Dad, does this particular person, do you love this particular person? And I said, yes, I do. However, it's not about whether or not I love her. That's important for sure. But the question is, does that person recognize love? And does that person want love? If the person doesn't want, we have to stop and really think about this, particularly for ourselves. Do we want love? Do we want love? Or are we seeking comfort, predictability, and convenience? My experience with myself and just witnessing the world around us, and I brought this up in the essay, is love is not always our first choice, and it is not always our habitual choice. So does the person want love, and is a person capable of recognizing it? This is what sadhana bhakti is about. It's about bringing us to a state where we can recognize love and we understand and we see, we begin to resonate and appreciate that our being is one of love. And if we live according to our being, everything in life begins to have meaning. Not about comfort, not about convenience. We're talking about meaning. When we have meaning, there can still be discomfort, and we can live an extremely satisfying, lifting life, even while we experience discomfort and inconvenience, if there is meaning. That's what love is. That's what bhakti is. When we live within our being, which is bhakti, meaning becomes the foundation of our existence. And where there is meaning, we can take any situation, any relationship, and we're able to transform those situations into relationships that are meaningful. Christ was crucified. Christianity is one of the largest religions in the world. Christ's teachings are still as valid today as they were 2,000 years ago. Because who he was, regardless of whether or not he was crucified, who he was transcendent beyond time, space, and millennia. I can go on forever. Anything else? To be shared?
Thank
Have a
you.
wonderful Sunday. Thank you all for attending. Have a wonderful Sunday. And I'll try to post this within our group and on YouTube, certainly by this evening, with a link to the essay. Hari Hari. Have a wonderful day. See you next Sunday.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hari Hari Chatamai Mataji.